want to know everything there is to know about you.
Now I'm going to introduce me.
You must have spotted her by now. She's always there.
Don't I deserve love?
Somebody has to like me best.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Don't Know Her podcast. As always, I am Scott.
And I am Michael.
And we are here yet again to talk about an icon of the screen, little and large. It is the one, the only. Tell us who it is, Michael.
Candice Bergen.
Candice Bergen.
My son is engaged and my husband is in Maui with a tartlet named Cheryl. Oh, I need a drink.
You say Candice and I say Candice. Candice. Who knows what it is? But let's go with Candice because Candice is quite hard work on the tongue.
She is Candy to her friends, but because we're not them, we better just stick to the formal.
Do you think she would have us? Do you think she'd have us as friends? She'd maybe take you.
I think she'd take me. I'm not sure about you. She might take me. Maybe.
No, I think I'd appear too, I don't know, squirrely for her.
So Candice is a really interesting person for this because she was born into, the elite Hollywood because her father was a famous ventriloquist on the radio.
Ventriloquist?
Ventriloquist? How do you say it?
Ventriloquist.
Ventriloquist. Yeah, he was super famous. So when, she was born in 1946 and her birth was marked with pictures with her and her father's dummy.
Oh, we have to put it on the Instagram.
Yeah, we'll put this on the Instagram because this dummy, he's a kind of life-sized young kid.
God, he's terrifying.
Charlie McCarthy. Yeah, Charlie McCarthy. I should say her mother was also a famous model, Frances Bergen. So yeah, Edgar and Frances were her parents. And she had a very interesting childhood. She went into played with Walt Disney's family, went on his train, play train in his garden, all these sorts of things. She was on her dad's radio show from the age of 11. But acting wasn't the thing she was going to do. That was not the plan. She went to the University of Pennsylvania, but left. I think she said in an interview her focus was anywhere but on the subject she was studying. She went to modeling, was very successful, and fell into film. So she got her first role in The Group in 1966, which was this large ensemble film about a group of women, and she plays a lesbian in it, which would have been
great.
Quite something for that time. And that was also coincided with a big Robert Wise production. So the filmmaker behind The Sound of Music and West Side Story did a film called The Sound Pebbles, where Steve McQueen was the big star and Candice Bergen was his leading lady. And she gets a Golden Globe nomination for Best Newcomer or Most Exciting Newcomer. And her career continued for quite a long time, playing these, the female part in a male-centric story a lot of the time. There are exceptions to this, but that kind of continues for the next kind of 15, 20 years, which includes movies like Getting Straight, Soldier Blue, Carnal Knowledge, directed by Mike Nichols. And then in the 80s, she starts Murphy Brown. So Murphy Brown is 10 years of this massive sitcom. She wins 5 Emmys. She's getting $250,000 per episode. It's a hugely successful thing, which takes her away from film. She makes no films during this time. And that ends in 1998. The original run, let's say, ends then. And she returns to film in 2000 with Miss Congeniality, and then starts another, moves away from these leading lady parts to men into a supporting character in more female-centric stories. So she has Miss Congeniality, 2000, Sweet Home Alabama. She has Sex and the City, the film, which she also was in the TV show of. Then she has kind of progressed into a different sort of mold. Like she's getting better parts essentially. So she does things like the book club, or just book club. There's no the, and a tiny part, but very effective in Noah Baumbach's Merowitz stories, and also recently in Steven Soderbergh's Let Them All Talk. She's a really fascinating person, and she's someone who, like, I thought I knew really well as a personality, because she also, like, as a film buff and getting to know films, like, she turns up everywhere. Like, she turns up in people's biographies. She turns out, like, she just seems to be like a presence in the film industry, even if, say, her output isn't so fondly remembered. Like, she doesn't have anything that, you know, pre Murphy Brown anyway, that people are really like clinging on to in the vein of like The Graduate or anything. I mean, we should say she was in the Oscar-winning Gandhi, but God, like, she's in it for this like 3.5 hour epic. She's barely in the film, but yeah, she's really amazing. Like, she's to be still working and pushing herself, and to be like she's basically as exciting now as she was when she first started, and that's pretty amazing for someone working for so long.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's wild. We're having the Bergonaissance. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
Let's go with it. The Candice Bergonaissance begins now.
Yeah.
I think it's really thrilling. I think she is, and she sort of has the same enigma type presence that I think she did when she first shot into film in the 70s. Like, when she shows up on the screen, you're like, bam, wow, whoa, who is this woman? And then it then makes sense with what you're saying, sort of post Murphy Brown, or even pre Murphy Brown, where she's cast in, well, more so post Murphy Brown, cast in these female centric stories, but always as this kind of steelier type, maybe mother figure or of that sort of ilk. But it's nice to have her back doing this thing where when she shows up, you're just like, okay, I'm here for it, Candice. You're going to bring the drama. We're here for it. Sell it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't know how you felt about like watching some of these films. So I've not seen most of her, you know, pre 2000 or pre 1990 work, and watching it like in the space of like 2 weeks or a week and a half or whatever is a really, like, I don't know, it's hard to come away from it and not feel like you've thrown yourself into this like toxic worldview. Because she's surrounded by even in like the rare time she gets to be with women in these stories, it still is like, I don't know, like, there's something about like her more recent work which feels like finally she's been given like, I don't know, like an appropriate like vessel or appropriate like package for her, you know, ability to shine. Because otherwise, like, say, like one of the better films from her early career, which is Mike Nichols' Carnal Knowledge, it's a really difficult watch, or I found it very difficult watch, to see basically these two men played by Art Garfunkel and Jack Nicholson basically talk about women in really quite, like, let's say, unpleasant ways for a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
And then they both go with Candice Bergen, and they both force her into relationships, or force maybe is too strong word, but they really do push her or pressure her into relationships.
Don't rush me, please.
What's the matter? I like you very much, Susan. It's our third date.
I like you too.
Well, you let me kiss you last week.
And this week?
If I could kiss you once last week, I should be able to kiss you at least twice tonight.
And I just find it like so like of its time, because it seems acceptable that female characters would be disposable to the kind of very superficial problems of these men. Because their problem is they want sex, and they want sex with who they want, and they don't want to be stopped. And the conflict is the woman doesn't want to have sex or doesn't want the relationship.
I feel very similarly to you. in that it has aged in a sort of problematic way. It's just a bit iffy, and I can understand people getting a lot out of it. I think the film has a really interesting rhythm. I like how it sort of uses this conversation between these two men, and you could look at it as being quite frank. I suppose it is quite to the point, and their approach to their discussions of women are incredibly surface level and incredibly shallow and egotistical. And that's why watching it in 2021, it does feel a little dull. But I'm sure at the time it probably did feel quite revolutionary in its approaches. But yeah, sitting down watching it now, I can't say that I cared a huge amount for what was going on, except for Candice, who I think this must have been the moment where she really connected. Well, I guess she had done a good few things previous to this. This was 1971. But when she appears on the screen in this, much like other players in Mike Nichols' films, she elevates it a huge amount. She's magnetic from the get-go. She's incredibly charismatic without saying a single word. She shows up in shots. She's at this party. They're already talking about her straight away. And it just makes sense. And even though the kind of sexualization, and like you're saying, that she sort of turns it away where she can. So she is given these moments, but it is sort of, she's geared up to be a certain type, which is unfortunate, but she is very sexy in it. But I think that's through charisma rather than anything else necessarily. And I think that's to her own credit primarily as well. But she just seems to really get the rhythm of this kind of film, this talky, pacey, back and forth.
We'd be good together.
I'm dating your best friend.
He won't mind.
How do you know?
I won't tell him.
What if I mind?
You want to go out Friday?
I'm seeing Sandy.
Her presence alone, like that, she has, and this is why I like Candice Bergen in general. There's a strength to her presence on screen, but then the second half, where Candice isn't involved at all, or she's talked about a bit, becomes this like really interesting exploration of a relationship between a character played by Anne Margaret, who is suffering from depression and is suicidal, and because she gets in a relationship with Jack Nicholson. Again, the film undermines her character way too much, but Anne Margaret does a really exceptional job. But you're right, this was a big moment for her. And the other film just from this time is Soldier Blue, which is this really striking film, which was not a hit in America, but was really successful elsewhere, where it's a Western, but it's an anti-Vietnam War film where she is married to, she's a wife of a Native American chief. She's a very strong character. She knows what's going on. She has a lot of big statements about, why violence is wrong and war is wrong, and why what's happening with Native Americans and what's happening with colonialism is wrong.
Putting up their forts in a country they've got no claim to. So what the hell do you expect the Indians to do? Sit back on their butts while the army takes over their land?
You saw for yourself what they did, taking off scalps.
Yeah, and who taught them that little trick? The white man.
Oh, and cutting off hands? And cutting off feet? And cutting off...
I know what they cut off. But at least they don't make tobacco pouches out of them. That's something else you soldier boys made up.
I think this film is not necessarily the best by a long stretch. But I don't know. I think her character has moments of being interestingly drawn, or certainly for 1970. I mean, she is very kind of fierce, for lack of a better word. She's got this wildness about her. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily steer anyone towards Soldier Blue, except for her getting to be more wild and free and loose than she is in anything else in her career.
And I mean, just when you look at all these films in the 70s, it just kind of feels like she's being cast again and again in these parts, and something isn't quite clicking. This time there were, amazing parts going to all sorts of, people that we celebrate, Jane Fonda or Diane Keaton, these sorts of people come to my mind.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then The thing that like I imagine changed, or certainly she gets an Oscar nomination for this, but it's 1979 in a film called Starting Over. Burt Reynolds and Candice Bergen are separating, and Burt Reynolds is, coming to terms with that, gets set up with Jill Clayburgh, while Candice Bergen is having uh, a, a moment where her career as a like a pop singer is taking off. Like it's funny. I think I can only imagine it was inspired by something like Annie Hall, or it feels like a Woody Allen, but without the ability to move gracefully between like humor and pathos and all these. Like I don't think it can do all those things as well as say Hannah and her Sisters or Annie Hall or something like that. But she is amazing. Like Candice Bergen, I don't understand how. Like, so she doesn't make a comedy for quite a long time after this. Like Murphy Brown, really, the TV show. But isn't she so much fun?
Yeah. No, she's so delightful in this. Just, I mean, from the get-go. But it's a fun part because it lets her do two very different things as well. Where you think she's set up as being pathetic, she sort of throws it back at the male character, so it allows for her to have more fun. They break up at the beginning, and then he calls her one day and she's sobbing, and he's like, "Oh my goodness," like thinking, "Oh, I'm back in. This is all going to work out again." And she's like,
"They're gonna release my song as a single. They expect these great things. I just can't believe this is actually taking place. I'm actually living my fantasy."
And it's like, oh, this is so much fun. But yeah, just from the get-go, when they break up, he leaves the flat and she just sits down at the piano and starts singing. And like, she's kind of horrendous, but it's so wonderful. It's just like, there's just such energy to it. She is absolutely going for it.
But the thing is, she does sing like little ditties or whatever in, I believe it's in Sam Pebbles and maybe it is Soldier Blue or one of the others. So she can carry a tune.
Yeah, definitely.
But the choice, like, so there's that, which I was a bit like, okay, shut the piano. She's not really prepped. But then when she's decided they should be back together and she's written this new song and she like lures him into this motel room. And it's all like at that point, like Burt Reynolds and Jill Clayburgh are a thing, and the audience, or myself anyway, was like, oh, I hope that they work out. Anyway, but Candice has brought him back to her motel and they're going to sleep together. And he's like pouring wine or champagne, but then she turns on the tape and starts singing this song called Better Than Ever. I can't sing anyway, but I can't even do a good enough job to be as bad as Candice. But God, it is amazing.
So we'll never say goodbye again. Throw off your shoes and come on in. Say hello to an old romance. Say hello to a second chance. Where you've been so long, my love. Come on back where you belong. You and me together.
And then she stops. She goes, "I did this song for us." Or it's like, and Burt Reynolds, who isn't giving he's not giving a performance equal to his co-stars.
No.
But in this scene, what he is good at doing is like staring at her as if like, what the fuck? And this wine is overflowing, but the focus is Candice. Well, they're not having sex. Like, she's ruined everything. But at the same time, the audience is like, but she's so happy. Like, she was so happy in that moment.
Yeah.
It's just glorious. And it's like, she did make other films after that, which were serious and whatnot. But thank God, like Murphy Brown came, because Murphy Brown, from what I've seen, I was too young to have watched it as it was live on TV and whatever. But watching clips of it for this, like, it's such a great role, and you can see where, starting over to Murphy Brown would have made sense. And then you see like where that would have made sense to things like Miss Congeniality, where she is being very silly but serious, and like, there's like, I don't know, there's a fun part to that, which I love her. I just love her being in those sorts of roles. Another film let's talk about before we move on to like post Murphy Brown which I know you're dying to talk about, is George Cukor, who is this like amazing filmmaker that did all these big women pictures with Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, and like anybody who was anybody worked with him in the golden age of cinema. And his last film, I don't know how to build it up. In his last film was called Rich and Famous, with Candice Bergen and a wonderful British actress called Jackie.
You can't even say her first name, let alone
Jacqueline Bisset.
Jacqueline Bisset. Just go for it. Say it again.
But we're at Jacqueline Bisset, who is like so British that I thought it was put on. Like it's like Liz Hurley, but bigger nearly. Playing friends who are competitors. For what reasons, we're not quite sure.
Because they're women, and women cannot both be successful, you see.
Women be fighting.
If they're friends, only one of them can succeed, and maybe neither of them should. That's the feeling that we're getting from this. But I wasn't bored watching it, I'll say that. I think the film leaps around like it's absolutely batshit how it jumps from tone and just time. It's just certain moments, just there's no sense of where they are in their lives. It'll be like a 1 minute will pass and suddenly Candice Bergen's 8-year-old daughter is 18 and being played by Meg Ryan. You're like, where the shit has the past 10 years gone? Like, what's going on here? And it has no handle. So it is wildly freewheeling along these people's lives. And Candice Bergen just always seems to be really upset at Jacqueline Bisset. And you're never really sure why, and I don't know, it is just sort of pitting these women against each other.
Now I'm a slut?
You said it.
What are you saying, Mary?
How many men have you had?
Is that the test?
How many?
How many before you're a slut?
3.
Kick me out of the yard.
And how many besides my husband?
3 sailors and a jockey, but never your husband, which at this point I dearly regret.
What astonishes me is that you have no idea why I truly hate you at this point. It's not because of your jealousy over my work, but because you lack the moral sensibility to appreciate what I have lost in Doug.
But it's not without its some moments of pleasure. They feel few and far between, but I don't know. No, I would say it's far more kind on Jacqueline Bisset's character. Candice Bergen is played to be a bitch in this film, and at any point where things are not going her way, she is just written to be an absolute cow. But Jacqueline Bisset's character does get nice moments of sensuality, shall we say? But besides that, yeah, I'm not sure what it's got a huge amount going for it.
Would you say this is the first time I'm going to do this on the podcast? But do you think, like, I would rate Candice Bergen's performance in Rich and Famous as bad, like very, very bad?
Oh, okay. I thought you were about to say I would rate it high, and I was going to be like, oh shit, no. This is the one time I think in the list, whether I've liked the film or not, I watched it and was like, she doesn't get it. It's like she's on another planet and has just decided to go in like soap opera.
You can see her struggling with the text, with the tone. She's also given, like, she's not helped by the script, she's not helped by the costumes, which are glamorous and fun and whatever, but they're just not in keeping with her character.
Yeah, no, it is wildly strange.
Yeah. So then, like, there is a big, like, she made a few more movies, but, her career was kind of winding down. When I say a few more movies, let's just like pit stop for Gandhi, which she was in, because in her personal life she was doing a lot of like photojournalism, and she played a real life photographer who went to be with Gandhi and document his time. She's very good in it. I'd actually never seen the movie before this. I'm really grateful. I did watch it like it was a mini series, so I didn't sit and watch all of them.
I couldn't revisit it. I couldn't do it. So Gandhi, to anyone who went to school with me, was that film that you spent weeks watching in RMPS. So we certainly watched it like a mini series because it felt like the thing was never going to bloody end. But having done that, because how would I remember sitting there in class at the age of, like, I don't know when we watched it, 14, 13, I'm not sure. I certainly can't remember Candice in it. How long is she in it for? Is she in it for more than 2 minutes?
she like pops in twice, I think, but she's
Okay.
not in it much. It is very impressive. If it was a miniseries now, it'd be winning all the Emmys for like, it's a good.
Oh
It's a good
no,
thing.
of course. And shout out to my drama teacher, Miss Bryce, who was an extra in it. Whoop whoop.
Well, shout out to
Anybody.
anybody. I feel like some of those scenes, like
There was
epic.
a lot.
I'm not. There's a lot of extras. But yeah, shout out to your teacher. Shout out to my teachers too. I love you all. No.
Oh, yeah, well, moving.
But then, do you like that? Well, we had to watch Dances with Wolves, which I think I swapped Gandhi.
Then, yeah.
No, I think I was. Anyway, I don't mind it for sure. But yeah, then we had the Murphy Brown years, where she did something which I think is a really, like, I don't know how you feel, but it's one of the reasons I like her. So she wins these 5 Emmys and then asks not to be in the competition anymore, which is amazing to do. I wish more, I wish more people would do that sort of thing, because, award bodies do get into a habit of voting for the same people again and again and not, broadening their scope. So good for her. I love that. So then she does return to cinema in what I would have known her from first, Miss Congeniality.
Okay, great. Yay.
Which is if we're saying like carnal knowledge has aged, Miss Congeniality has aged. There's like really weird jokes about, eating disorders, which doesn't age very well, and things like that. But I find this film a joy. Like from start to finish, I'm like sat there smiling. Even Michael Caine, in a part that when I was younger didn't really clock that he was supposed to be homosexual. I just thought he was kind of like, I don't know, like he was, I don't know what, but he doesn't read gay in any way. Apart from some of the words he says.
Yeah, besides him hitting on all the younger men in the film, other than that, nothing about him does really read as gay. It's just Michael Caine goes to a beauty pageant.
It's such a strange. I would love to know, like, where it's such a weird casting, and I'm not like against it as if like, oh, that shouldn't have happened. I'm just like, who thought Michael Caine could play a gay stylist?
Given the amount of people he could have chosen from, how in the world did they end up at Caine? But hey, why not? I mean, he's kind of fun to watch.
He's having a great time, but so are they all. So it's a story of a beauty pageant run by Candice Bergen, who is a previous winner, and it's not a beauty pageant; it is a scholarship for young women or whatever. Yes. And so she's determined, that it will all run smoothly, but there's a threat. There's a bomb scare. So they have Sandra Bullock, who is like if you a Cinderella story kind of style. She is this gross female FBI agent who, thanks to Michael Caine and his team, change her into, surprise, surprise, the Sandra Bullock we all know from the red carpet. This gorgeous, like, gazelle of a woman. But she has to do, like, dance routines, and she has to, like, present, and she has to do, like, a skill. Like, it's really fun, and it's about her, because she's just, like, cold, like, woman who doesn't have any friendships and is very, like, afraid of commitment. And by the end of the film, she has, like, loads of friends. She is voted Miss Congeniality. She saves the day. And more importantly, she has, like, her and Candice Bergen do not get on. So Candice doesn't think she should be in the pageant.
I know I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
I've been fighting all my life against your type. The ones who think we're just a bunch of worthless airheads. You know who I mean. Feminists, intellectuals, ugly women. But I refuse to give in to their cynicism. That's why I have dedicated my entire life to this scholarship program. And no one's going to ruin that. Not this year.
Her character sort of is the product of the institution she's still propping up after all these years. She's been hard done by it, but she stands by it in moments of kind of, she gets some like cracking lines, fun, good times. This is the sort of the birth of this era of Candice Bergen, supporting roles in more female-centered pictures. And then from here, we probably leap on to what was my first encounter with Candice. For me, it was the Reese Witherspoon classic Sweet Home Alabama from 2002. Not that it's one that's that's worth spending too much time with. But you know what? It's got its charms. It's a fun little movie. Reese Witherspoon playing a fashion designer who has to go back home to Alabama to get a divorce because she is going to marry the mayor's son, and Candice is playing the mayor. I take it of New York. I actually can't even remember, but that's who she is.
I think so, yeah.
And she's certainly giving off a very similar energy here as she is in Miss Congeniality. And we can also bring it up now because I'm sure we're not going to spend more time talking about it, but Bride Wars in 2009, where she plays the wedding planner.
Yeah, I mean, Bride Wars is not a mile away from Rich and Famous. So women be hating women for the sake of...
Well, that's very true.
Having a story. Like, it is toxic in like the highest form. Like, I don't have any friendships that I think would break because of us having a wedding on the same day.
Ours probably.
Well, yeah, I mean, first we would need fiancés, but
which is never ever going to happen.
that might, yeah. So I feel like that's a far-fetched storyline. But I'm sure maybe that would happen. We'll never get to test that. No. But yeah, no, it's, so she's doing all these small parts in these movies. She's kind of repeatedly in these films, so people know her and recognize her. And reaching new audiences like ourselves at the time. And then she kind of, like, or what I'm reading as hopeful are two films. So Book Club and Let Them All Talk.
I mean, Book Club is a film which is sort of... I was going to say it's like something which has come out of the past, but it's not, because we don't get nearly enough films like this about specifically elder female friendships. I think you get more of it on television, but it's so much fun. But also its sort of place and time is so peculiar. So this film, Book Club, comes out in 2018. It focuses on their sexual awakening surrounding them reading the book, The 50 Shades of Grey. And 50 Shades of Grey came out in 2011. So it's so behind the times. Like, 50 Shades of Grey is long come and gone. If this had been way more on the mark, and it had been like every woman across the world reading this book, and plenty of men, but if it had been way more timely, I think it could have taken off way more than it did. But instead, 7 years after the fact, they do this film where they're reading it for the first time. But Candice is really a nice fit in this one.
I haven't had sex since my divorce, and it's been the happiest 18 years of my life.
What? That must be some kind of record. I mean, what even happens to a vagina after 18 years?
I think Werner Herzog did a documentary on that.
Yeah, it's called The Cave of Forgotten Dreams.
Okay. Can you stop it? Moving on. Let's talk about the book.
I think because she is the one who sort of leans into the physicality of the age a lot more than the others. That's maybe a good way of putting it. She sort of inhabits being a woman in her 70s. Is that sort of what we're kind of thinking she is at this point ish, thereabouts? And then she finds herself and I think it is Bumble, or an equivalent of Bumble, and she's having a good time swiping away. And oh my god, if it's such a good time. If you are of a nature which is going to like a film starring Jane Fonda, Candice Bergen, Mary Steenburgen, and Diane Keaton at a certain age, having a great time, you're gonna have a good time.
I would happily watch it again. Like,
yeah.
I love it. And then so there was a bit of a gap between that and then her next film, which was just last year, Let Them All Talk, which is the Steven Soderbergh film with Diane Wiest, Meryl Streep, as friends who are reconnecting after a long time. It's like is it 30 years, if not more? Like a very, very long time. And Candice Bergen and Meryl Streep's relationship is, uh, shall we say, cold? Because Meryl Streep is a famous writer, and one of her most popular and significant works, her books, was based on Candice Bergen's life and has had, she believes, an impact on it in quite a negative way. But the film is very light. Like, it is a light touch. Like, when we say it's not book club light, but it is like it's like a holiday. So they go on a cruise because Meryl Streep's getting this award and she doesn't want to fly, or she can't fly for various reasons. And they all get on a cruise with Lucas Hedges, who plays Meryl Streep's nephew. And so the way that it was filmed, it seems like very quickly, like, you know, on the fly, like they would improv, they would, you know where they were going. The film has had mixed reviews. I know we both love it. And I mean, I love Diane Wiest and I love Candice Bergen. And also Gemma Chan plays Meryl Streep's agent in it, literary agent, and is really good. And I also do like Meryl Streep and Lucas Hedges, so just spending time with them anyway would be good. And they're basically allowed to, sometimes for Candice Bergen anyway, for better, sometimes for the worst, for some of the other performers, lean into what they naturally do. And it's quite fun to see like actors kind of loosen up, and it feels more like theater to me, some of their performances.
Yeah.
Again, I mean that in good and bad. And you know, like Meryl Streep, who I think's always good, she is kind of like a parody of herself sometimes in it.
I think that there's an element of it, and him quite specifically, Soderbergh, simplifying parts of this story, but it very intentionally is only taking place within a transatlantic crossing. And I would say during that time, it is certainly stripped back to very sort of basic natures within each of the women. And therefore, I think it's so interesting. And with reference to Candice, like it was one of my favorite performances of last year. She just seems to completely get what she has to bring here, and is probably bringing way more than they anticipated. I can imagine Soderbergh sitting down afterwards and being like, wow, like, look how much she gave us. This is not what I was expecting. And therefore, this depth probably came just purely because of her. She's so fractured and she beats herself up about where she is in life.
I hate my life. I loathe my job. I desperately want money. I really want money, and I'm not in a position to meet a guy who has any. I mean, I get these old codgers who come into the store and they want to buy a thong for their teenage girlfriends. Well, I am old, rotten meat for them. Oh, they're not interested.
Honey. And you're just like, oh, man, like, you have had a difficult ride, and it's so right for you to feel mistreated, and she's showing that. It's an interesting one, but maybe we should also say that it's still a film that the UK is waiting for a proper release date on. When it comes along, I think it has potential to do quite well, and I hope it does, but it also might not at all. Who knows? But Meryl, Diane Wiest, and Candice at, in my opinion, the best she's ever been. I'm wondering what you think of that.
You know, Diane Wiest and Meryl Streep are two incredible actors to be, you know, in a trio with, in a serious film. And I think Candice is doing a lot better than those two. And you feel like you're spending time with the character who has lived the life that she is describing. Like, she is bringing a lot of weight. So she is fantastic in it. It is a shame she wasn't, you know, in the Oscar conversation. But then I can understand why a little bit, because the film is, I don't know how you pitch that film.
Yeah, I do think I understand it not being there.
So before we talk about what we would like for Candice, hopefully we can call her Candy at this point. Shall we do the quiz? It's your turn, right, to ask me, right?
It is. You are getting the tough questions coming at you. So, let's see if you know Miss Bergen. And if you do well, your prize can be
a cruise.
Oh my god, your prize can be a transatlantic crossing on the QE2 or whichever of those it is. So,
oh my god, yeah. Can it be with Diane Wiest, Diane Keaton, Jane Fonda? They're the people I choose to be with.
So you're just kicking Candice off? Well, I don't think she's.
Oh no, sorry. I just presumed Candice would be in there too.
Oh, good.
So
all right, but you're getting rid of Meryl. Typical bloody Michael. But okay, let's crack on. First one. Which famous asshole did Candice admit to dating when she was much younger?
So usually I would hate the use of that sort of language, but because it was Donald Trump, I'm going to allow that.
Well, actually, I thought it was quite kind. I could have gone down any avenue with that, but I thought that was sort of fine. But if we're going to, if we're going to be kind to him, she cited him as a handsome douchebag. That was her wording when she discussed the story on the Andy Cohen show. But she did also insist there was no physical contact happened throughout the date.
2 meter distance, even pre-COVID.
Yeah, even all the way back in those Candice Bergen college years. Carnal Knowledge in 1971 marked the first time that what appeared on screen?
A penis?
Oh, I mean, quite close actually. It's a contraption that is designed for use on the penis. No.
Oh, on the penis. A condom.
A condom. This was the first time a condom was ever shown on screen in Carnal Knowledge.
Well, good for you. Good for you, Mike Nichols.
Candice Bergen was the first female host of which US comedy variety show?
SNL, yeah, it's not right. And she
course.
She for ages she had hosted the most or something.
Yes,
I don't know.
She joined a club with not many others. How many times? Let's make it a 2-part question. How many times has she hosted?
Well, if she's won 5 Emmys, let's just say 5 might be Candice's lucky number. Is it 5?
It is 5. Well done.
Oh, amazing.
You're doing very well here today. And then for my final question, what I like to call, you ain't my mother.
You ain't my mother! Yes, I am!
And that is an EastEnders reference for those who sadly have not experienced Kat Slater and what was her daughter's name? Just shouting at each other on the street. It's like Christmas Eve or something.
Yeah, such a good time.
Wonderful.
I can't remember what her daughter's name was though. Okay, in this round, I am going to give you a series of famous movie stars, and you are going to tell me the film in which Miss Candice Bergen played their mother. All right. So to kick us off, we have Reese Witherspoon.
Home Again.
Home Again. Well done.
A great movie. A great movie where Reese Witherspoon sleeps with a young man and then has to have him live in her house with his friends. And Candice Bergen is all like, "Yeah, this is a great thing for you."
Naturally, go for it. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Speaking of Reese, oh no, that's a clue already. Whoops. No, well, I'll flip it then. In Sweet Home Alabama, Reese Witherspoon's other leading vehicle, who is Candice's child? Who plays?
Oh my God, the guy from Enchanted, Patrick Dempsey.
Patrick Dempsey, yes. McDreamy or McSteamy or whichever of the ones he was from Grey's Anatomy. Write in and correct me. Okie doke. The most incorrectly maligned movie star of all time, the incomparable Meg Ryan.
Oh, well, that is the best film I've ever seen, called Rich and Famous.
Yes, ding, ding, ding. But there's more.
Oh, no.
So Candice Bergen has played Meg Ryan's mum twice.
Oh Jesus! Oh, was it in The Women? Is that where she played Meg Ryan's mother?
She did in The Women, your favourite film of the century. Okie doke. Next one, Ben Stiller.
Oh, such a great movie that we didn't talk about. The Merowitz Stories, the Noah Baumbach movie, which is on Netflix, and Candice has a great little cameo as the ex-wife of Dustin Hoffman, and
Yeah.
it's such a good little scene.
It is a
That is
great
kind
scene.
of it's like let them all talk, like all, that sort of energy, but in one scene. Yeah.
No, it's amazing. It is this amazing confrontation. Not confrontation scene, it's her acknowledging her past mistakes
Yeah.
and it's just delivered perfectly. Okay, the final one for this round, we have Ryan Reynolds.
I think that I won't know because all the films I watched, from Miss Congeniality, Sweet Home Alabama, he's A View from the Top. He's not in, so I don't know. Rules don't apply.
No, but I mean, a good guess. It is actually The In-Laws, which was a noughties remake of a 70s comedy, also starring Michael Douglas and Albert Brooks. All right, so actually there you did very, very well. You got 4 out of 5 on on You Ain't My Mother. And all in all, you got near to full marks. So the cruise awaits you.
Oh my God.
I hope you have
Cocktail
a nice
Hour
coffee.
is going to be fantastic. We're going to sing songs. We're going to get her to do her starting over tune again. It's going to be fantastic.
Everything you'd want. Can't wait.
So, as we usually do, shall we go and talk about like what is the top thing you would love Candice to be doing next?
Ooh, the top thing. I have a few different sort of vibes that I want for Miss Bergen. But I think the first one I'll go in with, just because it sort of links on to where the last film we were talking about there, is I do really love the energy that her and Diane had in Let Them All Talk, and I would just love a reteaming of Candice Bergen and Diane Weist in something like taking that film Rich and Famous, which kind of really missed the mark on female friendship, and doing it right. A later year female friendship comedy drama, but with a fun twist. So let's get a really interesting director on board. Let's say Marielle Heller. Let's have her directing Diane Weist and Candice Bergen in this end of years type friendship.
Well, not end of years. What are you talking about? Like they could just be, older women hanging out.
I'm really prematurely aging them. They are very sprightly still, of course. How dare I? How good. Fucking dare I? But I'm no. Well, then let's give it. I know I'm going to go more specific. So I think they'll be like they're going to have been very successful musicians. I think Candice Bergen would be like an ex rock star. So sort of like one of the sisters from the 70s rock band Heart, something like that. And I would love it to be about them reflecting on their more wild years. There we go. Mm-hmm. There we go.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And just roll on what you were saying earlier. Like, I love The Father as how that was made, but I think they should remake it every few years with a different actor in the part. And I would have Candice Bergen as the father. I think she'd be fantastic. I don't think gender actually would matter anyway in that film, right? Or race or anything. I mean, apart from, I guess there's some choices that would have to change. But yeah, I think Candice in a part that really would flex her muscles.
Mm-hmm. Love
and
that.
Why couldn't Diane Weist be in Book Club 2? Like, surely they are, like, there is a green light for Book Club 2, right?
I think there will be, yeah, because it just seems to grow in popularity. People are still lapping up on any given occasion. Well, I want something way more severe. I want her to also channel that intense, volatile energy that she sometimes brings, and I would want her to be like a criminal overlord. like at the head of sort of mafia type family, gender flip the whole situation, because she could be, really very scary, I think, if given the right material. And then that I would want to have sort of a nice serious edge. And I don't know why this director's name came to my head, but I thought back on a film from a few years ago called A Most Violent Year, and that JC Chandor hasn't seemed to have done anything in a while. And I think that she would fit in quite with the very similar murkiness, darkness that is found in that film. So I think something like that, or if you wanted to do like a mob type thing and make it really light, then a throwback to what Jonathan Demme was doing with like Married to the Mob, and then have someone like Greta Gerwig direct it and have it be a more fun take. But I think I'm more interested in her going really dark with it.
Well, I was thinking kind of a similar thing of her being in charge of something, like, but I was thinking, I know Marvel give those sorts of parts to people and they're nothing, but like, like a heist movie, but she is like the one in charge, and she's like looking after everything and the logistics, and something kind of like fun and slick, which I know like Ocean's 11 and even Ocean's 8 or whatever from Soderbergh, but something like that. Because you're right, like she has this kind of like no nonsense attitude, like you wouldn't mess with her, regardless of like even without any kind of weapon. Like in these movies, you're like, oh my god, listen to Candice, because she'll get you if you fuck up. You're gone.
Yeah.
Like literally in Miss Congeniality, those FBI agents are scared of her, which is amazing and totally believable.
Yeah.
So I would be totally up for that. I was also hoping, I don't know what thing, but I was thinking some kind of like pop star role. So her like, I don't know if you do a film about Eurovision again or something. I don't know. There's this French film called Souvenir with Isabelle Huppert, who as a younger person, she was a Eurovision star, and she's asked to come back and represent France.
Oh my god, that's so fun.
But I'm not really for like making remakes of movies like that. But for this one, totally do it and have her, Candice Bergen, having been this like pop star and coming back for like one special performance. I would love.
Sold. Oh, I love that. Oh, that is a great shout. My only other one that I popped down here, but there's lots of things I would like for Candice, is because she's so good at that sort of talky type film like we saw when she worked with Mike Nichols. She has the right energy, and like she was in that scene in the Meyerowitz stories. Like I would love for her to get to work with Noah Baumbach again. But also immediately what came into my head, and I don't know if it was sort of similar to like Angelica Houston vibes in his films, but Wes Anderson type. So maybe we take your heist movie idea and have her the kind of leading up this thing, but it be a Wes Anderson heist movie. So there's my proposition for Candice meets Wes meets heist movie.
Well, I wrote down like any of those filmmakers. I feel like she could easily fit into those worlds. Like she's adaptable that way. So it is a bit not strange, I guess, but auteur filmmakers aren't like, Quentin Tarantino or Paul Thomas, all these sorts of people. Even as you say, like someone like Greta Gerwig, although because Greta and Noah Baumbach are a couple, so you would assume that she knows of Candice. But anyway, I don't know. I have this like one, like I'd love to see in a rom-com, like a full-out rom-com, that would be great. But my one thing I got into my head, even though I'm not a huge fan of this franchise, is Downton Abbey 2. Because I would love to see her and Maggie Smith. I feel like Candice is a bit of an American, like, she's no nonsense, she doesn't suffer fools, like, and that is what Maggie Smith is in Downton Abbey.
Oh my god, that would be so good. But then, without spoiling too much, is Maggie announced in the cast list for the next Downton Abbey film?
Surely they can't get funding without Maggie.
I know.
I
kind of do feel that way, because I guess they played it ambiguous at the end of the first one.
Yeah. So imagine, you would have Maggie Smith, Imelda Staunton, Candice Bergen. Maybe they get Shirley MacLaine, because didn't she play like Mary? Not Mary, what's her name? Elizabeth McGovern's mother.
Yeah, she's been in there too. Oh my gosh, have them all.
I would love it. And they could just have a book club, but back then... what would it? They could read like a Jane Austen novel or something. Be like, oh my lordy lord. Actually, the timelines are all wrong there, because it's set in the... It's set in the 20th century, right? Am I like, where is Downton Abbey? What is down to
At this point, I mean, it has travelled quite a bit through time, but at this point where it last finished up would be like, gosh, where are they now after the first movie? It's post-war now, 40s, 50s?
So maybe they go and watch like a movie and it shocks them and they just have a little chat. And Candice Bergen is like the film director, producer. I don't know. This is like, to be honest, anything could happen in those movies.
Oh, God bless it.
So yeah, like Candice is an interesting one. I'm not sure I would, like, in terms of like suggesting people to watch stuff, anything that sounded interesting from what we said, go and watch. But I'm not sure there's anything like, usually I'd be like, these are the films I would suggest. There is nothing from this list that we've talked about in depth that I would say you have to see. But I've really enjoyed getting to know her more. And like, she's such like a product of her time. So by watching her films and kind of doing research around them, I feel like I've learned a lot more about
definitely
what Hollywood was doing and what American film was putting out there and what they wanted to say, and what was received and what was commercial and all this sort of thing. So it's really fascinating.
Because I think she is someone, unlike other cases that we've done in this podcast, where I feel like I've worked backwards. I've started towards the end and being like, wow, you're amazing as this older actress, and now let's see what you were doing before. And I really liked approaching it like that. It sort of, it really coloured in her as a screen entity, a presence, and it was a good exploration, good choice on Candice. All right then, Mr. Michael. If any of you would like to get in touch with us, let us know your thoughts on Candice Bergen. If you have any suggestions of who you'd like us to see, who you'd like to see us talk about down the line, or if you just like to cut us down for the shit we're talking, then you can drop us an email at don'tknowherpod@gmail.com, or you can find us alternatively on Twitter or Instagram at don'tknowher_pod.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott. It's been a pleasure as always.
A pleasure as always. You have a stunning evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.